than the general view. And I think that's probably the most important thing to do, to get a general idea of women's physiology, pathology, certain aspects of diagnosis, etiology, which is also very important. And if we have time, I'll also Can you hear me? Yes. Today we're going to talk about gynecology, and of course it is a vast subject. You can lecture for at least probably 2 weeks on gynecology if you want to discuss all the treatment of various diseases. So what I'll try to do today is to give you my views on certain aspects of women's physiology and pathology, and as a general view, to give you my personal views on some aspects which are sometimes different than the general view. And I think that's probably the most important thing to do, to get a general idea of women's physiology, pathology, certain aspects of diagnosis, etiology, which is also very important. And if we have time, I also like to talk about the treatment of certain diseases, in particular probably heavy menstrual flow, heavy periods, probably painful periods, menopausal, depending on the time. Okay? The famous doctor Zhang Junjing who lived in the Qing dynasty, about 1600s, said that he said that treating one woman is like treating 5 men. And by that he meant that it is 5 times more difficult to treat women than it is to treat men. And by the way, he also said that treating 1 child equals treating 10 men. So by that he meant that treating women is 5 times more difficult than treating men. The reason, in his view, being that in addition to all the normal physiology which men and women share, you know, the digestion, circulation, urination, women's have the added complexity of the menstrual function. But I must say I disagree with him, because I do not think that treating women is 5 times more difficult than treating men. In fact, I think it is probably easier to treat women than to treat men, for many reasons, not purely to do with their physiology and pathology. Or maybe because I'm Italian, I like women. But I do find women easier to treat, actually. On an emotional level, they're more open, they're more receptive to treatment. So those 2 things by themselves are very, very important. But on a purely technical, physiological level, I do not think that the menstruation makes the diagnosis more difficult. I don't think that. In fact, you could say that an analysis of the menstrual function in a woman makes the diagnosis easier, not more difficult. For example, say you can't decide whether a woman has blood stasis or not. You're not sure. The tongue seems a bit purple, but not very purple. The periods are slightly painful. There are some clots. You're not sure. if in a woman, if you analyze the menstrual function, and the periods are very painful with dark clots, that symptom only confirms the diagnosis of blood stasis. So, in my opinion, an analysis of the menstrual cycle, the menstrual function in women, makes the diagnosis easier, not more difficult. So, let's look now at the physiology of women's first and how it differs from men's, because there are very substantial, very important differences. And let's talk about the uterus first.
Would you change your flip chart over a few feet to that side?
This side?
Yes, to your left.
Yes. I put the flip chart near the microphone because yesterday I was going back and forth. Is that okay? No, I don't like the podium sideways because then. Is that okay like that? Yeah. So the uterus is called zebao, or bao only. And in fact, that word bao is often translated as uterus, but that is actually wrong because bao is a structure that is common to men and women. And in women, bao is called the uterus. In men, it is the room of sperm. The room of sperm, which resides in the lower dantian. So, in other words, the lower dantian in women houses the uterus, in men, the room of sperm. So, strictly speaking, it is wrong to translate bao as uterus because bao is a structure, is something that is common to men and women. In women, the uterus, in men, the room of sperm. And this, in fact, this very, very first analysis already gives you an idea of important differences in physiology and therefore pathology between men and women. Why? Because the lower dantian in men is empty. What does it mean, empty? The room of sperm is not a physical structure. What is the room of sperm? It's just an idea. It's not a structure like the uterus. Okay? So, because we know that sperm is made in the testicles, not in the lower dantian. So there is nothing in the lower dantian in men. It's just an idea, this room of sperm. Whereas in women, it contains the uterus, which is full of blood. And therefore, the lower dantian in women is full. So you could say that in women, the lower dantian is full. In men, it is empty. And what does this mean? What is the implication of it? It is that this is one reason why women are far, far more prone to stagnation in the lower dantian than men. For example, there is the 7 types of abdominal masses which only occur in women, not in men. And women are far more prone to stasis of blood in the lower dantian than men. And interestingly, many years ago, one of my Tai Chi teachers used to say that women should not meditate cross-legged, sitting down cross-legged, because that may have the tendency to increase stagnation in the lower burner because of that. It doesn't apply to men. Okay? That was his idea. Now, the uterus is one of the 6 extra fu. Extra fu, they're called extra. Why? Because from one point of view, from the point of view of function, they're like fu. Like fu. But from the point of view of structure, they're like a zang. So the fu, what do the fu do? They are filled and discharged, right? Fill and discharge. And the zang store. So the uterus, the menstruation and childbirth are an expression of the uterus being a fu, discharging. menstruation and childbirth are an expression of the uterus being a full organ, and storing blood, and of course housing the fetus, are an expression of the uterus being a Zang, storing. So you can see in menstruation and childbirth, storing blood and housing fetus, two aspects of the uterus like a fu, and two aspects like a Zang. Bearing in mind that when we say uterus in Chinese medicine, we don't mean only the uterus, as in Western medicine, but it includes ovaries and fallopian tubes, which the ancient Chinese were not aware of. So the meaning of uterus in Chinese medicine is broader than, strictly speaking, the structure called uterus in Western medicine. Okay? Now let's look at the menstrual cycle and how the uterus discharges this function, because that's a very important and very interesting. You can identify 4 phases of a menstrual cycle. And some of these diagrams that I'm going to draw might be slightly different than in my book. Okay? You can identify 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. I'll write it here because that's quite small. The first phase is the period itself. The second is the post-menstrual phase. The third is the mid-cycle phase. And the fourth is the premenstrual phase. Now, from different Chinese doctors approach this in different ways, and some doctors approach this in a modern way and identify 4 phases according to Western gynecology as the follicular phase, the ovulation, and luteal phase. So what happens during those phases from the Chinese point of view? That's the most important thing. During the period, blood moves. This is the physiology. So that's under normal circumstances I'm talking about. During the period, blood moves, okay, which is obvious. In the post-menstrual phase, the blood is empty, or relatively empty. And the yin is at its minimum. Okay, so the post-menstrual phase, immediately after the period, the blood is relatively empty because it's been lost with the period. And from the point of view of yin and yang, yin is at its minimum, which you can see there. The dotted line is the yin. Okay, so it's the minimum, and then it gradually rises. But we'll look at yin and yang again in a moment. A mid-cycle, from the Chinese point of view, the Chung and Ren fill up. And the Chung and Ren are responsible for ovulation. They fill up, and the yin is increasing. In the premenstrual phase, yang increases and qi moves. And it is the movement of qi, of liver qi, which prepares the woman's uterus for the period to occur again. So if we want to look at this in terms of yin and yang, it's difficult to express it exactly in terms of lines, but what we can say is definitely that yin is minimum there after the period and increases, reaching a maximum at ovulation. And after ovulation it decreases because yang is increasing. That's why the temperature goes up immediately after ovulation. So the yin is maximum at ovulation, and then it starts to decrease again until the next period. Okay, roughly like that dotted line. Yang starts to increase at ovulation quite sharply, and it reaches actually a maximum just before the period. So in actually speaking, this line here, the full line, should not actually drop there. Should not drop there as it is here. Okay? Because the yang reach a maximum before the period. And that's why some people can say that estrogen pertains to yin and progesterone pertains to yang. But you know, I have my doubts about this direct correspondences between Western and Chinese medicine. But one thing you can say for certain is that the ovulation and menstruation are periods of transformation of yin to yang and yang to yin. With ovulation, there is a transformation of yin to yang. The yin starts to decrease and the yang increases. With menstruation is the opposite. There is a transformation from yang to yin. So, however you draw those lines, this is basically what is happening. The ovulation and menstruation are moments of transformation of yin and yang. Ovulation from yin to yang, and that's why we know the temperature increases after the ovulation, as you can see there. And with menstruation, the opposite, from yang to yin. And at the basis of this is the kidney energy. The kidney energy is the basis of this fluctuation of yin and yang. That fluctuation of yin and yang is a fluctuation of kidney yin and kidney yang within that cycle. Okay? For this reason, as we will see many times today, the kidneys have a very predominant role in women's physiology. Because this is like an ebb and flow of yin and yang, like a tide of yin and yang. Yin and yang of what? Of the kidneys. Because the kidneys is the only organ that is the source of yin and yang. It controls the chung and ren, which control ovulation. And so the kidneys are the most important organ for the fluctuation of yin and yang in the menstrual cycle, but not the only organ. All the organs are involved. But the kidneys is the origin, is the substance. Other organs play a role, as we will see in a moment, the liver, the heart, the spleen. But without the substance of the kidneys, then there wouldn't be any fluctuation of yin and yang at all. And let's look at the other organs. Is this okay? Have you seen this one? The heart plays an important role. So this is what we've just... By the way, what I'm saying now is actually slightly different than in the book. The role of the heart, I'm emphasizing a bit more the role of the heart than I did when I wrote the book. Okay? What does the heart do? The heart controls the transformation, as you can see there. The kidneys control the mutual generation and consuming of yin and yang. yin and yang interact with each other and they mutually consume each other and generate each other, which depends on the kidneys. But the heart controls the transformation, i.e., the discharges of the eggs at ovulation and the discharge of blood and menstruation. Is that clear? The kidney is the source. Without the yin and yang of the kidneys, nothing would happen. But the heart is the transformation agent that makes it happen. And most of all, is in control of the discharge of the eggs at ovulation, which represents a change from yin to yang, and of blood and menstruation, which represents a change from yang to yin. And according to the Neijing, it's a very old idea, you know this, it's in the book as well, the uterus supposedly is connected to the kidneys by the bowel wall and the heart by the bowel mei. Bowel means uterus in this case. And luo means connecting channel, mei means vessel. So that's the uterus vessel and that's the uterus channel. Supposedly the kidneys is connected to the uterus, which is obvious, everyone knows that. There's a very strong connection between the kidneys and the uterus. But the heart is also connected to the uterus by the bowel mei. However, in reality, that bowel mei and bowel luo are nothing but channels of the chung mei and the ren mei. And I'll draw it here. Okay, the heart, uterus, bowel mei, kidneys, bowel luo. Actually, the bowel mei is a vessel of the chung mei. Because the chung mei, we were going to talk a lot about the extra meridians, actually. That's be one of the features of this lecture, the use of the extra meridians in gynecology with the examples. The chung mei goes to the heart, and many of the symptoms of the chung mei have to do with the heart. And the bowel luo is nothing but a vessel of the ren mei. So in other words, the connection of the kidneys with the uterus takes place by the ren mei. The connections of the heart with the uterus takes place by the chung mei. Okay? Is that clear? So that bowel mei and bowel luo are not new channels, but they are part of the chung mei and ren mei. Yes, you see the red line here representing yang here doesn't drop. In my previous diagram, which is the same as in the book, I have this yang line here dropping, but actually should not. That is the maximum before the period. And then it drops suddenly with the period. Okay? So, in other words, a healthy menstrual cycle depends on a healthy state of the kidneys for the generation of yin and yang, and the heart for the transformation of yin and yang. And this is another example which illustrates the importance of the mental state, emotional state, which affects the heart, on the menstrual function. And within the for the menstrual cycle to be normal, the heart and kidneys have to communicate. The heart and kidneys have to communicate. Heart pertains to fire and needs to go down, and kidneys pertain to water and needs to go up, which is strange, right? Because fire goes up and water goes down, right? So it's the opposite of what one expect. And there's an interesting quotation there from an old book. he says the harmony of heart and kidneys depends on the ascending of kidney qi and descending of heart qi. Kidney pertains to water. How can it ascend? And the answer is because there is yang within yin. There is yang in water. Heart pertains to fire. How can it descend? Because there is yin within fire. So they communicate with each other. So in the menstrual cycle is like an ebb and flow of yin and yang, the yang being red, and the yin being blue. And the changes are through a feedback to the heart and kidneys. Through the heart and kidneys. And the heart is particularly responsible for the transformation of yin yang and vice versa, and the discharge of the eggs and discharge of blood and menstruation. But all of this takes place through the extrameridians. Okay? All of this takes place through the extrameridians. This is actually the other way around. The Pao Mei is controlled by the Chung and the Pao Luo by the Ren. Okay, that's the other way around, as I said before. Okay, remember that. This was wrong. Pao Mei is Chung, Pao Luo is Ren. Okay. So what do they do, these channels? Well, the Chung and Ren are responsible for ovulation, but the Du Mei also plays an important role. We're going to look at the pathway of these channels in a moment. But the Du Mei and the Ren Mei, the Du Mei should not be forgotten in women. When we talk about menstruation in women, we always talk about Chung and Ren. But the Du is actually equally important because Du and Ren are like a circle. They are not two separate things. Li Shizhen said that. He said they're like midday and midnight. If you try to separate them, you can't, he said. One governs the yang, one governs the yin. And apart from everything else, internally, the two pathways cross over. Moreover, as we will see later, when you analyze the pathway of the Du channel, the pathway of the Du channel is far more complex than what you see in the chart showing a line up the spine. Okay? For example, the Du channel, if you read the Su Wen and the Ling Shu, especially the Su Wen, from the perineum, the Du channel goes through the front and goes to the vagina and the inner thighs and connects with the kidney and bladder channel. So it goes to the front as well, to the vagina. So that the Du and Ren represent nothing but the yin and the yang, this mutual ebb and flow of yin and yang in the menstrual cycle. And they control, through the kidneys of course, the Du and Ren control the ebb and flow of yin and yang in the menstrual cycle. As it says here, Du and Ren control the balance of yin and yang in the menstrual cycle. But the other channels also play a role, a secondary role, the two Weis and the two Qiaos, yin and yang Wei, and yin and yang Qiao. Okay, you remember them? They play a role. The Weis, what do the Weis do? They link and connect. So the two Weis play a role in connecting yin and yang. They facilitate that connection and interchange of yin and yang. And the two Qiaos help the balance of yin and yang, because you remember the two Qiaos absorb excesses of yin and yang. Okay? So the two Qiaos and the two Weis do play a role in this, and they help the Du, the Chung, and the Ren to achieve this balance of yin and yang in the menstrual cycle, but they have a secondary role. Why? Because the yin way, the two ways and the two qiaos cover mostly the limbs, don't go through the uterus. They don't go through the uterus. So they have a secondary role in achieving that balance of yin and yang, but they do play a role. Okay? Any questions so far? So remember that's the other way around, yeah? Pao Mei is Chung, Pao Luo is Ren. So this is another way of representing it. You got the heart connected to the uterus, to the Pao Mei, and the kidneys through the Pao Luo. It's like a vertical axis of heart, uterus, kidneys. And the Du and Ren as like a horizontal axis connecting, regulating yin and yang within the menstrual cycle. So the extrameridians are extremely important for the menstrual function, and that's why acupuncture is great. I mean, many people seem to say that herbs are better than acupuncture in gynecology and this and that. That's not necessarily true. There's nothing more powerful than doing MOX on Ren4, more powerful, more direct than doing MOX on Ren4, for example. Okay? And an understanding of the extrameridians is very, very important for the treatment of gynecological problems, as we will see in a moment. Okay. Any questions so far? Yeah? So let's talk about the influence of various organs on the menstrual function, starting from the kidneys. Oh, let's go back to the four phases, actually, and see the importance of them. Let's go back. Let's look at these four phases again. So that's in blue here is the physiology, or what should happen in those four phases, okay? And in red, I put the treatment principle. During the period, there's three things you can do. One, do not treat at all. Do not treat. Two, invigorate blood. Invigorate blood. If period is scanty. And three, stop bleeding if it's heavy. Okay? So invigorate blood if the period is scanty. If a woman needs invigorating blood. In other words, if a woman needs invigorating blood, during the period it will be the best time to do it, because the blood is already moving. Okay? Unless, of course, I stress unless the period is heavy. Of course, if the period is heavy, you do not invigorate blood. Okay? During the post-menstrual phase, you nourish blood and yin. And mid-cycle, when the Chung and Ren fill up, you tonify the kidneys, nourish Jing, strengthen the Chung and Ren. Tonify the kidneys, nourish Jing, and strengthen Chung and Ren in the mid-cycle phase. Strengthen Chung and Ren and tonify Jing is the Chinese way of saying promoting ovulation. There are herbs that do that. Tu si zi, for example, does that. Tu si zi, cuscuta, gou qi zi as well, and rou tsung rung, sistanche, especially tu si zi and rou tsung rung together. So nourishing Jing and strengthening Chung and Ren is the Chinese way of saying promoting ovulation, which is a very important, of course, important treatment principle in infertility. And in the premenstrual phase, you move liver qi. Okay? Move liver qi. Yes, well, I'll read it, okay? Yeah. So, in the first phase, during the period, very often you don't need to treat at all. Or, if you need to invigorate blood, that is the time to do it. Invigorate blood, unless, I stress again, unless the period is heavy. If the period is heavy, you do not invigorate blood, okay? In the second phase, nourish blood and yin. Third phase, tonify kidneys, nourish Jing, strengthen Chung and Ren. And in the fourth phase, move liver qi. And what does this mean? How do you apply this? You apply it a lot. I use this all the time in treating gynecological problems. All the time, whether you're using acupuncture or herbs or patent remedies. I'll give you several examples. Starting from the first, if you need to move blood, say supposing a woman has painful periods from blood stasis, then you need to treat it during the period. That's the best time to move blood. So I would concentrate the treatment in the first and fourth phase, starting before the period. Okay? Concentrate the treatment in the fourth and first phase, which means you don't need to treat that woman all the time, the whole month. Okay? It's a woman who suffers from painful periods from blood stasis, and you want to move blood. That's the best time to do it, unless the period is heavy. Although there are prescriptions in herbal medicine which can do both. There is such a thing as invigorating blood and stopping bleeding at the same time. Okay? But for the time being, let's leave that out. So you concentrate your treatment in the fourth and first phase. There is no point in moving blood in the post-menstrual phase. When the woman has just lost blood, the blood is empty. There is no point in moving blood, invigorating blood. Okay? Or vice versa, if you want to nourish blood, that's the best time to do it. There's no point in nourishing the blood during the period when the woman is losing blood. So these phases and these treatment principles allow you to be more precise, to adapt, basically, the treatment principle to the flow of yin and yang in women's physiology so that it works better. And the treatment is aimed more precisely, and you don't need to treat that woman the whole month. Supposing you're treating a woman for infertility, from kidney deficiency, then obviously you must concentrate the treatment a lot in the third phase and possibly also second, tonifying the kidneys and strengthening Chung and Ren. Another example, if a woman suffers from stagnation of liver qi, that would be the best time to treat it, in the fourth phase. There's no point, not much point in moving liver qi, for example, in the second phase, immediately after the period. Okay? So the best time to do it would be the fourth and first phase to move liver qi. Yes?
What are your suggestions for the patients where they have had amenorrhea or scanty menses for so long they have no idea where they should be in the cycle?
Yeah, of course, If a woman suffers from amenorrhea, you can't use this. Scanty periods you can, but if they suffer from amenorrhea, you can't use this. But interestingly, many doctors in China treat amenorrhea by giving 4 formula, 1 week each, which with these treatment principles to establish the cycle artificially according to these 4 principles. So even when a woman has no period, these 4 principles are important. And you can actually do that, treating amenorrhea with 4 prescriptions. And that's used a lot also in infertility. Many, many Chinese doctors treat infertility with 3 or 4 formula in 1 month. It's a very important method which is used all the time. Some doctors use them according to these principles, some according to modern views, and they call it the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, the progesterone phase, luteal phase. They also change the prescription following the temperature. As the temperature rises, which indicates ovulation has occurred, they change the formula. So giving 4 formula in 1 month is a very important treatment principle in infertility and even in amenorrhea. Yeah?
Couldn't you try to time it by the lunar cycle also?
By the?
By the lunar cycle
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
for amenorrhea?
Yes.
Full moon being
Yeah.
ready to release.
Yes?
You're applying by being able to change the cycle with specific formulas depending on where in the cycle you're applying them. That there's no other structure or some kind of a control for this whole thing in Chinese medicine other than the fact that these channels are doing their respective things at a different time. Is that true?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Let me rephrase it. Is there any kind of control over the entire cycle
Mm-hmm.
in Chinese medicine, other than the fact that these things happen at certain times? You're applying by applying these formulas at different phases that it's possible to override this cycle.
Oh, no.
Or to create it.
No, not to override it, no. No, not override it, no. The cycle is a natural cycle. It's like a tide. Ebb and flow of yin and yang is a natural cycle. It's an ebb and flow of yin and yang under the control of the kidneys, the Du, Ren, Chung. And we are adapting to that cycle. We're not artificially manipulating it. You can't, in fact, do that. Is that what you meant?
In Robert's question, he mentioned that in the case of amenorrhea,
Yeah.
you don't know where the phase is.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, in case. Yeah, sorry.
You can in fact create that cycle.
Yeah, some people do that. Yes. I wouldn't say you create that cycle, but you help the woman to get in balance with this flow of yin and yang. Is that what you meant? Yeah, or not? No, you can't create the cycle artificially. Well, you do sometimes in amenorrhea, but you can't alter that cycle. We are trying to understand the cycle to adapt our treatment to it. Of course, this is in normal conditions, because if the cycle is 8 weeks long, then it throws it all out. And if it is 2 weeks long, it's more complicated. I'm just talking about an ideal situation of a relatively regular menstrual cycle. We're just trying to understand this ebb and flow of yin and yang to adapt our treatment to it, because if you adapt your treatment to it, it will work better. Because as I said, if you don't understand that, if you don't adapt it, there's not much point in moving blood in the second phase, or qi. Okay? Or there's not much point in nourishing blood in the first phase. Yeah, that's all that we're trying to do. Yes?
I think that what he's asking is, since you don't know where the person is in the moment of the cycle when you prescribe the different formulas, that's his question. How do you know when to prescribe the formula? And I think that the answer is you don't know. It's just that since you go through the 4 different stages, then the body will take in those 4 different stages what is needed, and then will establish itself and balance by maybe next month or later.
What do you mean you don't know what? You do know. If the period is relatively irregular, you do know. What?
They're all talking about amenorrhea.
Oh, you're talking about amenorrhea. Oh, that's different. That's a different thing. I mean, that's a pathological condition anyway. I'm talking about physiology now. I'm describing the physiology, the women's physiology, the ebb and flow of yin and yang. So amenorrhea is a pathological.
I think that's his question.
Yeah.
Since you don't know what the patient is at, how do you give that?
Yeah.
I guess because it will take everything the body needs in that moment
Yeah.
to establish the
Yeah.
information.
Do you want to?
Well, in cases of amenorrhea, the basal temperature of the metabolism could give you a hint of
Yes.
where the person
Yeah,
is in
it can.
cycle.
Yeah.
So if you don't know where you are, have the patient take their
Yeah, of
temperature
course.
and you can tell
Yeah.
where.
Okay. This. Yes.
Is there any essential difference between a primary amenorrhea and amenorrhea after stopping the pill?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Can we talk about this a bit later now? Because I'm going to mention a few things on the etiology and talk a bit about the pill as well. One more thing about this. This is very useful also if you use patent remedies for 2 different conditions. If you use 2 patent remedies, okay, which you sometimes do. Example, you're treating a woman for liver blood deficiency and liver chi stagnation, which, as I said, yes, is very common. So you give a remedy to nourish liver blood, say, for example, the precious pills, and you give something to move liver chi, the famous or infamous Xiaoyaosan. I'll tell you in a moment why infamous. And what is the best way of doing it? In my opinion, in my experience, the best way of doing it is to give the precious pills in the phase 2, in the second phase, and the Xiaosan in the 4th and possibly 1st phase. And you can have many, many examples of that. Supposing you're treating a woman for infertility and she has a kidney deficiency and blood stasis, which is very common. You can give something to move blood in the 4th and 1st phase, 4th and 1st phase, and tonify the kidneys in the 2nd and 3rd phase. So adapting your, especially when you're using more than 1 remedy, you're using 2, sometimes even 3 remedies, adapting that to the cycle gives better results, and the woman does not need to take 2 remedies all the time. Okay? So let's talk about the influence of the kidneys now on the menstrual cycle. Physiology. The kidneys are the most important organ because they are the origin of Tian Gui. And Tian Gui, Tian means heavenly. Gui is difficult to translate because it's the name of the 10th stem. The name of the 10th stem, which pertains to water. So there is really no way of translating this. Some people translate it as heavenly dew, because the character for Gui contains the same radical as for dew, D-E-Y. But it is the 10th stem, which significantly pertains to water, the 10th stem that pertains to water. So the heavenly Gui basically is the menstrual blood in women and sperm in men. Men have heavenly Gui too. And it's mentioned in the very first chapter of the Zhu Wen when it talks about sexual maturation in boys at 16 and in girls at 14. It says when a girl is 14, the Chung and Ren are flourishing. He uses a word similar to flourishing. And the Tian Gui arrives. The Tian Gui arrives, and the woman and the girl can conceive. And the Tian Gui is the menstrual blood. And likewise, at 49, the Chung and Ren become depleted, and the Tian Gui dries up. The menstruation ceases, and the woman can conceive. So Tian Gui is the menstrual blood, and the kidney is the origin of it. And for this reason, menstrual blood in women is different than ordinary blood. Okay? Why? Because it's a precious fluid, equivalent to sperm in men, deriving directly from the kidneys, and particularly kidney yin, kidney water. So menstrual blood is different than blood. And the famous gynecologist Fu Qingju made that point very strongly. He said, for 100 years people have got it wrong. They consider menstrual blood as blood. They don't understand that it is water. And he says, not by chance, it is called Jing Shui, which means period water, menstrual water, and not Shui. It's not called blood. So he made that point very strongly, that the menstrual blood is Tian Gui and is a manifestation of kidney water and kidney Jing, like sperm in men. However, having said that the kidney water is the origin of Tian Gui, the kidney fire also plays a role. The minister fire also plays a role in it. And the minister fire is essential for the crystallization of kidney water into Tian Gui. It's like if you make a salt solution, a very rich salt solution, salt and water, and if you apply heat to it, you get salt crystals. Okay? And the salt solution will be the kidney water. This is the minister fire. And the salt crystal will be the Tian Gui. So, although the kidney water is the origin of it, nothing would happen without the kidney fire as well. Again, you see the importance, going back to the extrameridians, the importance of the Du Mei in women. It's not only the Ren and Chung, but the Du plays an important role as well. Okay? So, if you need to regulate the menstrual cycle, the kidney is the most important organ. Because, I repeat, the kidney is the only organ which is the source of yin and yang, of fire and water, and for this reason, in women's physiology, an overlapping of deficiency of kidney yin and yang is very, very common. And it is more the rule than the exception. And as we will see in a moment when we talk about pathology. Okay? So women, because of this importance of the kidneys, water and fire, a deficiency of the kidneys nearly always involves both. It's not 100% kidney yang deficiency or 100% kidney yin deficiency. And in women, that seems to be the case much more than in men, especially at menopausal age, as I mentioned yesterday as well. Okay, so other organs, the influence of other organs on the menstrual cycle, you know, I don't need to say a lot about that. The liver is very well known and probably too well known, because I feel that it's probably the influence of the liver on the menstrual function is probably sometimes overemphasized. Okay? The liver and spleen play a role in the transformation of Tian Gui into menstrual blood, but the kidney is the origin of Tian Gui. Of course, the liver stores blood, which is housed in the uterus. So it's a very important function from that point of view. And as we've seen in the 4 phases, liver qi moves in the 4th phase, which is essential. That movement of qi is essential for the movement of blood during the period. Okay. So have you got any questions so far? Yes?
If you have a patient who is allergic to various flowers and plants and therefore are afraid of taking the herbs,
Yeah.
are there any specific points that we can use in acupuncture that could help more than, is it even worth using just acupuncture and not following up with herbs?
Yes, I would just, the question is, you have a patient who's allergic to,
Flowers, and they're afraid to take herbs.
yeah, of course, I would treat it with acupuncture, yes, of course.
And would you do treatments in those phases that they're having?
Yes, you can use acupuncture for those phases as well, not only herbs or remedies, yeah, in exactly the same way. Say you're treating a woman for stagnation of the liver qi, instead of giving her 1 treatment every week, you can give 3 to 4 treatments in the 4th and 1st phase. Say you're treating a woman, you're nourishing blood, there's no point in treating her every week. You can give her 4 treatments in the 2nd and 3rd phase. Yes, so you can follow those treatment principles also with acupuncture by treating more frequently in those in the relevant phases. Okay, let's look at pathways of the extrameridians now, briefly, before talking about the pathology. The Chung Mei both all 3 meridians, Chung, Du, and Ren, start in the same place. Chung, Du, and Ren all start in the same place, which is the place between the kidneys where the Dung Qi throbs, according to the Nanjing. And they go down to Ren 1. And then 1 becomes the, the Ren. 1 the Du, and the other the Chung. So there are 3 branches with a common source, as Li Shizhen says. And that's where the Chung Mei starts. And the Chung Mei has a very complex pathway, which is important to understand because it explains its pathology, its symptomatology. And from here, from Ren 1, it emerges at stomach 30. So stomach 30 is called Qi Chung. Stomach 30. is called Qi Chung. So as a very important Chung Mei point, where the Chung Mei emerges from as a very strong energy. It's a very strong point. And then follows, as you know, follows all the kidney points on the kidney channel in the abdomen, and it goes around the mouth, circles around the mouth. There is that famous chapter in the Su Wen that explains this. The Yellow Emperor asks Chipo, why is it that women don't have a beard and men do? And Chipo relates that to the Chung Mei. You remember that? He says that women lose blood with the menstrual period, so the Chung Mei has relatively less blood than Qi and doesn't nourish the growth of beard here. In men don't lose blood, so the Chung Mei has relatively more blood than Qi, which promotes the growth of hair. Yeah. Which is exactly true, because you can see sometimes excessive hair growth after menopause. Because the period is stopped, the Chung Mei has relatively more blood, so it can promote the growth of hair.
What is with this man who has no beard?
Sorry?
What is with this man who has no beard? I mean, there are a lot of men in the world who have no beard.
Yeah, it's true. Chinese people have a much sparser beard than Westerners, yes, but they still have it. Yeah. But there are many other reasons for that. There are dietary reasons for that, too. Okay, anyway, so after that, a branch goes up the spine there. And what does that explain? That explains the fact that some women can get menstrual periods in the back. If you get menstrual period in the back, in the spine, that's due to that branch of the Chung Mei. And one doctor I saw in Nanjing, for example, treats dysmenorrhea very often by pricking the Huatuojiaji points along the lumbar vertebra, pricking the Huatuojiaji points along the lumbar vertebra. And to him, he does that to release stagnation in the Chung Mei, that branch of the Chung Mei. And then there's a branch going to the leg in the inner thigh from stomach 30 along the spleen channel. When it branches out in the foot, one goes to the sole and one goes to liver 1, Tai Chung. And that's why Tai Chung, liver 3, is a very important Chung Mei point. Whenever you use liver 3, we are using the Chung Mei as well. In fact, in that famous statement, which I quoted in the first chapter of the Su Wen, you remember it says at 14, the Chung and Ren are flourishing. Well, the actual word used is not Chung Mei, but it is the Tai Chung vessel. The Tai Chung vessel. Tai Chung as in liver 3. Okay? And the Chinese character for Chung in this case is the same as Chung Mei, and also in this case. And some people say for this reason, any point with Chung in their name, of course Chung, this Chung, because there are other Chungs, is related to the Chung Mei. And certainly it is true for these 2 points, and also for stomach 42, which is called Chung Yang, and spleen 12, which is called Chung Men. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the Du Mei pathway, because that's quite complex. It's not. This one. No, let's look at this one. The pathway of the Dumé is actually, there's quite some disagreement on it. For example, chapter 16 of the Ling Shu has the Dumé as a branch of the liver channel going down the spine. Chapter 16 of the Ling Shu says that the liver starts from the big toe, goes up over the body to the top of the head. When it reaches the top of the head, it goes down the spine along the Dumé, downwards. So if you interpret that as the Dumé, it would seem to be a branch of the liver channel going down the spine. Chapter 23 of the Su Wen talks about this. When it discusses the Dumé, it says that the Dumé has an abdominal branch, which goes up the abdomen in the midline to circle around the mouth, which sounds very much like the Renmei. So either the Su Wen got it wrong and confused the Renmei with the Dumé, or the Dumé really has another branch which goes up with the Renmei. Moreover, as you can see here, the Dumé starts in the same place, in between the kidneys, like the Chungmei, and it goes to the front, to the penis in men and vagina in women, to the pubic bone, and connects in the buttocks with the kidneys and bladder channel. So the fact that it goes to the front there as well, and might have an abdominal branch, is very important because it stresses its influence on the gynecological system in women. But the most important thing is that whether the Su Wen is right or the Ling Shu is right, it doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that the Du and Ren are like a circle, which is something Li Shizhen stressed a lot. They intersect inside. They are two sides of a coin. Li Shizhen said they are like midday and midnight. You can't separate them. One governs all the yang, one governs all the yin. And as we've seen in relation to women, menstrual function, they are very important for the mutual generation and consumption of yin and yang in the menstrual cycle. Okay? Which means that you should not forget the use of the Dumé in women. It's not only Chung and Ren. And I'll give you some examples later of extrameridian treatments. Okay. Another interesting thing about the Dumé is that it connects kidneys, heart, and brain. Kidneys, heart, and brain. It starts from between the kidneys. Internally, it connects with the heart. In fact, Du 14, for example, tonifies heart yang. And of course, it enters the brain. So it connects the three structures. You can see from that its importance in the mental emotional sphere. Connecting the kidneys, which controls willpower, to the heart, which houses the Shen, to the brain, which also houses the Shen, according to many Chinese doctors, including Li Shizhen. Okay, so let's look now at the pathology of the menstrual function of women.